Translating a search from PubMed to Embase. So, as I stated, it's a good idea to start your search, create your search in PubMed, and then translate it to other databases. So now I'm going to show you how to translate a search from PubMed and into Embase. So at this point, you've already ran your search in PubMed, you've kind of reviewed the results, you're getting pretty good results, you're happy with them, they're the kind of articles you want, and so now you want to translate that to other databases to try to get as many relevant articles as possible. The learning objectives for this video are to know how to translate mesh terms into Mtree terms, to know how to translate keywords from your PubMed search into keywords in Embase, and then finally how to combine all of those terms together for your final search strategy in Embase. So here was the final PubMed search, and we are now going to translate this search into Embase. So we want to notice some things. Notice when I say translate, that means whatever we did in PubMed, we want to pretty much do the exact same thing in Embase, but we need to put it in terminology that Embase understands, that Embase can process. So wherever it says title, we want to find the equivalent of how to search for title in Embase. And wherever it says mesh, we want to find the equivalent of what's the Mtree term in Embase. So we're going to figure that out and then put it all together for our final search strategy. So here's the search from PubMed again. I have copied it and I pasted it into a Word document. And so I'm going to just do some things in the Word document. So the first thing I tend to do is I'm going to separate my concept. So wherever I see and, I know that's another concept. It makes it easier for me to see it when I'm working with the search. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I usually make sure all of my mesh terms are together. It just makes it again easier for me to see it. And then all my keywords are together. So that's my mesh term, and it looks like my mesh terms are already at the end, so they're all already together. And I didn't have any mesh terms for this concept here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Embase and I'm going to find the mesh terms for these concepts, and I'm going to replace the mesh term with the Mtree term. In order to get to Embase, I start on the library homepage and I scroll down, I go to databases. And from here, I can type in, well, you can see I do this often. So I have Embase already in my search box. So I'm going to click on Embase, click go. Embase shows up here. If I were off campus, I'm going to click on this. I'm on campus, so it's taking me directly to Embase. But if I were off campus, it would ask me to put in my Blazor ID and password. And so notice at the top, it says Mtree right here. So this is how you get to the Mtree terms in Embase. You click on here. And so now I'm going to go concept by concept. So I think one of them was diagnosis. So I type it in here and I have a couple of results. It gives me some suggestions and I'm going to try this first one. So I click on it. And now in mesh, it would usually give you a definition of what is meant by that term. I noticed in Mtree, I don't see that. So, which is another reason why I like to start in PubMed, because I can actually get definitions. But I can sort of I can kind of browse through their concept tree and kind of figure out if this is probably what I'm talking about. I can also scroll to the end, and so sometimes, okay, here they actually did give you a definition or a scope note. They don't always have that, but this time they do. But sometimes you can also look at like the synonyms, or if they give you any information down here that they can give you an idea whether that's the correct Mtree term. So I read that, and this is pretty much what I want. So another thing to notice is extend your search explode. So if it explodes, that means it's going to automatically pull in all of these things down here. So you have to decide based on whatever your concept is, do you want to include all this other stuff? Sometimes based on this concept tree, you may find that you don't want all of this stuff. You may want to pick certain ones. So it's really just up to you, and it just depends on your research question. I'm going to just leave it on explode. If I didn't select explode, it would only retrieve articles that have diagnosis. But if I put it on explode, it's going to retrieve diagnosis as well as everything underneath it. I'm going to leave it on explode. And I'm going to click add to query. Okay, so notice it looks a little different. So for Mtree, this is the way it's going to look in your search. I am going to move on to, I'm going to do the same things for all of my my mesh terms. So I moved on to my next term, which is therapeutics. In PubMed, the concept of therapy or treatment was called therapeutics. But in Embase, notice that when I put in therapeutics, it says for therapeutics, use therapy. So I'm going to click on that, and so the Mtree term is going to be therapy. And so when I scroll down again, I see this concept tree. I see that if I click explode, it's going to include all of these things. And again, I decide whether I want all that, whether it relates to my search. I can look in synonyms. There is a dictionary and a scope note here, gives you more information. But again, it doesn't always do that for everyone. So sometimes you're going to see that in Mtree, sometimes you won't. So I'm going to add that to my query builder. And so it's up there. And I'm going to do this for all of my mesh terms. I'm sorry, yeah, for all my mesh terms. I'm going to highlight this and begin to move it over here so you can see what I do with it. So I copied that. So I copied it from Embase, and then wherever it says, so I'm going to just paste it in here. Okay, so diagnosis would replace diagnosis mesh, and therapy is going to replace therapeutics. So I'm going to follow the same process that I just did, and I'm going to do it for all of my mesh terms. As I was going through this and doing my translation, I wanted to point something out to you. So here in PubMed, it made a difference between infant, child, adolescent. They were different on their concept tree. But when in Embase is different. Right now I'm in PubMed. I want to point out to you what I'm talking about. So it says child. The definition says 6 to 12 years old. If I click on child so I can see more information about the record, to see what's included, because in PubMed, by default, whatever is included, whatever the mesh term is, whatever is underneath it, it automatically brings that in. But notice that it includes child preschool. So I'm going to click on age groups. I'm going to go up one. And I want you to notice the way this is. So they have child, preschool. Infant is a separate thing. So if you put in child, you don't automatically get infant in PubMed, which is why I had child mesh, infant mesh, adolescent mesh, because they were separate. Now in Mtree, it's different. When I put child here, and it brings me to the child Mtree term, and I look at what's included underneath it, when I put in child, I will get infant. So as long as I put in child and I click explode, I'm going to automatically get infant. So that means that for my search, I won't need to have an Mtree term for child and infant, because I'm going to get that with child. And I can look here to see if, okay, so I'm going to add this to my builder, and that's there. And so now I'm going to try adolescent. So I misspelled it, but for adolescent, we're going to put in this. Let's see. Adolescent, juvenile, let's see. Well, and again, some things about your search to kind of think about, because if I put in juvenile, I get adolescent and child, but I also get juvenile animal, juvenile plant, which may not be that big of a difference, but so it's kind of just up to you how, at this point, how I would want to do it. But I'm going to just put in adolescents. I'm going to add that to my search. So now I'm going to copy these two. Well, this one too. I'm back on my Word document, and I have completed the Mtree terms. So here are the Mtree terms for diagnosis, therapy, my concept up here, and here are my Mtree terms for child, infant, and adolescent, because we found that infant was already included underneath child, so I only have two Mtree terms here. So my next thing is I'm going to work on my keywords. So what I usually do is I use the control find feature, the replace, and so I put in the whatever right now is title, the brackets, and so I put that in the find, and then I replace it with nothing so I can get rid of that. I'm going to do replace all. So now I've gotten rid of all of those at once. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it and paste it into Embase and look for all these keywords in the title. So I'm back in Embase and I look at the top and it says search, and this is how I get to the keywords function. So here are some drop down menus and I can change them if I click the drop down menu. So I'm going to put it on title because in my PubMed search I searched in the title for these keywords. I'm trying to keep my search the same. So here I can paste that in. And right now I'm not doing my real search. I'm just trying to get, just like in PubMed, there were the brackets, the TI. Here I'm trying to get the equivalent in PubMed. So I'm going to just put in all of my searches. I'm going to put it in with title and just run the search, just because I'm not trying to actually do the search. I'm just trying to get the field tags. I'm in Embase, and so now I've added my keywords to each line and I have title here. Now right here it does show you how many articles you're going to get, but I'm okay with that 36 because this isn't my real search. I'm only, right now I'm just trying to get the field tags. So I'm going to click show just so I can get the field tags. And so up here, these are giving me my field tags. This is what I really want. That :TI behind each one. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go back to my Word document to format this. I am back in my Word document, and so I'm going to paste. I copied it, the words that I needed from Embase, and I'm going to paste it here. So this is all together, and so I'm going to format this. So I have all this stuff, and notice the TI here, that's the title. And so I'm just going to add in, this is my first concept here. I'm going to copy that and add it to this concept. Put in OR there. All right, so that's done. Pediatric, this is that, and copy that and put that here, the pediatric. So that's all together. And now the last part is the CVI, and there were no mesh terms for that, so I can just leave that. So now I have it translated into Embase. And so now, just to make sure everything is right, I'm going to just copy it and I'm going to just run it in Embase to make sure everything's correct. So I'm back in Embase and I'm going to, I could do it here. I could just delete this and paste the search from my Word document, or I can go here where it says search and I can click that and run my search from there. It will work either way. So I'm going to paste. This is my search for my Word document. It includes the keywords and the Emtree terms, and I'm going to click search. And now I'm getting 268. So you see those Emtree terms do make a difference. So I went from 36 to 268. And that's pretty close to what I got in Embase into PubMed. So I know I'm probably on the right track. But also I would take time and I would actually scroll through the results to make sure they're the kind of articles I want. And if they are, then I know I'm on the right path. The last thing to do would be to, once you reviewed the results and they're the type of articles that you want, you would just select all articles and then you would export them into EndNote.